It's that race.
Do it next time. I want to do the Waco Marathon and
10, 2, and 4 now.
Yeah, it's got substantial.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I've heard that person should see the Alamo.
Well,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, of course. I've seen that.
I have not.
I have not been to the Alamo.
A good friend of mine took his kids down on a family vacation. He said the Ladies and gentlemen, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Barkley. Here. Bates.
Here.
Kimbrell. Here. Patterson. Here. Rusterholt.
Here. Very good. If everyone could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
America, we love you.
First Amendment, we love you.
We can take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We, the people of Colorado, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe, in order to form a more independent and perfect government, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Colorado. Thank you. Okay, approval agenda. I'm going to need a motion to amend the agenda to add an action item. It's the ESEA General Assurance Approval. Do I have a motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
Do I have a second? Second. Roll call.
Barkley. Aye. Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Rusterholt.
Aye. Okay.
Where will we be at?
You're adding that to the
Action, so it would be-
Unit of actions.
That's actions, yes,
Would
correct.
be EK0. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'd suggest adding it to the first of actions just because it's trivial now.
Okay.
Where is it going to be? I'm sorry.
AD.
Well, no,
VIIA0. Before A.
At the beginning.
for the adoption of the budget.
At the beginning. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? We need to do it again?
No.
As amended.
As amended, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second,
Second.
roll call?
Barkley. Aye. Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Rusterholt.
Aye. All right, thank you. Next item is District Community Spotlight. We've got a couple of items. Mr. Witt?
Yeah, first off, we want to recognize our highest GPA achievements this year. We try to recognize the top 3 GPAs each year. I don't believe any of the students were able to be here tonight, but let me ask real quickly, are any of the families of these students here? No. Okay, well, we'd like to recognize Dawson Tisdall with the highest GPA in Woodland Park this year among the graduating class. Erica Taylor ranked 2nd in the class. 3rd in the class was Joseph Schrotlin, and he tied 3rd GPA. So we have a 4th who is also ranked 3rd, Caleb Kizior, who was also recognized for an accomplishment in theater at our last meeting. So congratulations. We're very proud of them.
Thank you. Congratulations to Columbine Elementary School and Summit Elementary School for being recognized by Capturing Kids' Hearts as Rising Star Schools. 500 schools nationwide were nominated, and Columbine and Summit were 2 of 147 schools who received the recognition award. The award is granted as an indication that each school is in their first year of implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts strategies and structures with fidelity and making positive impacts with their school community. So congratulations to both schools and to Katie Rexford and Ginger Slocum. And here is the certificate. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Tonight, but you'll have a certificate as well.
Okay, public comments. I've got an introduction to that. Public comments. Please be aware that any personnel, or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law, and it is out of respect of the law and our employees and students that we require those discussions take place privately in executive session. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes or a total of 15 minutes total for a particular topic. The intent of public comment is to give the Board of Education the opportunity to hear your comments. However, the board will make no decisions or take no action on public comment during the meeting. Do we have a list?
Yes, we do. We have 5 people that have signed up, so we'll just do this random. We have Matt Galowski.
You count down timer that I can't get rid of, so when you hear beeping, it's just counting you down. You still have 3 minutes after that. Okay.
All right. Hello, the City Council is seeking transparency and accountability with how the sales tax money is spent, as you know. But I see you guys focusing instead on the threat of the sales tax money being taken away. You're using that to scare teachers into emailing the council saying, hey, your pay is going to be cut if they take the tax away. I guess I'm wondering why you're avoiding this question of accountability. So this is a question of trust, really. That's what it comes down to, right? So should the council and taxpayers trust you guys? Should they trust the Woodland Park School District and Ken Witt over there to spend the tax money in an agreed upon manner? I believe you have not earned that trust from us. And if anything, you've shown that we cannot trust you. I believe you have lied to and misled the public about how money is spent in our district. I only have 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining, so I'll be quick. When the board voted to provide transportation services to Merritt Academy, you misled the public about where the money for that service comes from. Kids who ride the buses pay $50, but that doesn't cover the bulk of the cost. The cost for the buses is paid by Gateway, Summit, Columbine, middle school, and high school. Merritt Academy pays 0. Kim gave a presentation to City Council a couple meetings ago with a pie chart showing where the sales tax money was being spent. Sales tax money goes into the general fund, as I think you know, and the intakes, they're tracked closely, but the expenses are not. With your current accounting, it is impossible for anyone to accurately say how that sales tax money is being spent. No matter how hard you try, you cannot give an accurate answer. The truth is you just don't know. However, in that same presentation, Kim screwed up. He talked about spending $80,000 of sales tax money on capturing kids' hearts in this current fiscal year. You look at the receipts, that's not true. The money came from federal grant money and then from the reserve budget, reserve balance from last year's budget. So again, he was not honest with the council. For the current school year, you told us that you'd be spending $275,000 of federal grant money in Columbine, Summit, Gateway, the middle school, and the high school. You communicated to that through a budget and supporting resolutions. Instead of spending the money in those schools, you secretly gave it to Merritt Academy. You never told the public of this change, and we'd not have even known if we hadn't dug for the details, done core requests, and found out for ourselves what you guys had done behind our backs. You lied to the taxpayers. Let's face it, to stumble upon and be able to prove lies like this, I got lucky. We all got lucky. It's so hard to catch this stuff. What else is there that we don't know about? What are you going to show us on that board tonight with next year's budget? That's another lie. We just don't know. You have demonstrated that we cannot trust you to spend our tax money the way that you say you will. I hope the council takes steps to hold you accountable and provide taxpayers with honest transparency. One last thing, as you go into executive session to review Ken, keep in mind that Ken Witt might be the first superintendent in the nation, or at least in Colorado, to be the target of 4 student-led protests.
Thank you, Mr. Galowski.
Most recently, 24 students turned to graduation with their backs to it.
Your time is up, sir.
2000 is a big number. Don't forget that.
Next speaker is Gail Garrick.
It's counting you down. You can talk.
I'm here tonight to tell the board that I hope that they look at the Courier and read the guest column by Carol Greenstreet. And the title of it is A Time to Mourn. I'll read 2 paragraphs. Parents mourn the loss of their voice, of the confidence to keep their kids in the district of their community or leave for higher ground, of staffing instability, of trust that the BOE cares about concerns or even knows what's going on in the schools. So many kids, despite fastidious diligence of current staff, grieve lost support as fewer staff address education needs, of their favorite teachers, of pride and belief in their schools and government, of friends and family to other districts. As a larger community, we digest the loss of funding and opportunities for families, of transparency and the examination of sales tax, of confidence in a budget integrity, of decreased percentage of budget spent on teaching staff while increasing spent amount on administration. A comment on the budget. She mentions in here too that the administration, the superintendent will get $20,000 raise. That's absurd. Even E.R. Bosse's was wise enough to lower his salary. And a board who paid $750 an hour for attorney's fee is just ludicrous. You've been duped. And I don't know why you're not doing something about it.
Next speaker is Lance McMahon.
Good evening, board members and fellow community members. My name is Lance McMahon. I'm a CPA with a background in governmental auditing, and I'm a concerned advocate for public education within the district. 2 items that I wanted to comment on just briefly tonight: high legal fees and transparency, and community engagement. I'd like to draw attention to the legal fees incurred by the school district during the fiscal year ending June 2023, specifically an exorbitant amount equal to a total of $191,688, of which $143,013 was paid to the law firm Miller Farmer. That's a pretty big number for a school district this size with the student population. I look back at the financial transparency numbers on the website to see what was budgeted, but it's not there. It's probably included or lumped with some other line items. It's not in the audit, it's not in the budgets, but somewhere in the detail, it may be there if you look hard enough. As community members, we have a right to transparency. However, the invoices we requested copies of were 100% redacted, leaving us in the dark about the nature of these expenses. Our motivation is not negative. We're just curious. How did that much money get spent on legal fees? Like a little runaway train? I don't know. I wasn't there. You were. I don't know if the budget was adopted and then amended each time the legal fees continued to grow. So I urge the board to provide unredacted invoices so the community can see that district funds have been used judiciously. The community also needs assurance that decisions are made objectively, without undue influence. Competitive bidding processes would ensure fair rates and accountability. And lastly, on community engagement, as stakeholders in our schools, we must actively engage in questioning decisions that impact children's education. We must continue advocating for transparency, accountability, and the responsible use of taxpayer dollars. I encourage the board to address our concerns and implement and uphold the principles of open governance. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker is Karen Francis.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you about your new high school requirements. Could I have your attention, please,
Can you-
Mr. Witt?
Excuse me, could you talk into the microphone? I just can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Is this a little better?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm here to talk to you about the new high school requirements. I want to stress that I absolutely agree with what you're trying to do. It's extremely important to be a good citizen. Having respect for the laws of our country should be part of the morals and values that we're teaching our children. My children understand the freedoms that are offered by our Constitution. Their great-grandfathers, grandfather, and father have all served in the military to protect our Constitution and great country. With that being said, I have issues with the way you're doing it. I, as a parent, haven't seen the curriculum or even heard about it until yesterday. This is no way to introduce a new class that will become part of the graduation requirements. As usual, changes and decisions were made to our schools and children with no input from us as parents. Why? It's a simple question. Why? Many of our seniors, and as a parent of a senior, have their classes all lined out to meet the current 2025 requirements. To throw a wrench into it now undermines all the work that they have done to this point. This is unfair and not logical. I'm asking for a simple rollout, introducing the class with the current upcoming freshmen. This allows for ample opportunities to adjust the requirements, introduce the curriculum, and allows the students in freedom with their schedules. I want to stress to you again, I understand what you're trying to achieve. I'm asking that you be fair and open-minded when it comes to throwing in a new requirement for graduation. I don't think this is too much to ask. I know that our public library is more than willing to help with the introduction of a citizenship curriculum. We have lawyers, former history, and civic teachers willing to tutor any child that may need the help. If this class is introduced properly, it will serve our children well. Please think before you act. Talk to us. Let us see the curriculum. We can help establish the new high school requirements with our children in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Next speaker is Andrew Heitzelman.
Thank you for your time. I realize the superintendent's review has already probably been done and determined. However, I just wanted to highlight some of the issues that I hope are taken into account. The main issue is the now divided town that was once peaceful and stress-free. I realize that is not just because of the superintendent, but he had a large part to do with it. Since he has had his position, there's been many claims by many different people of false record keeping and number changing. Also, teachers and staff that tried to speak up against him were consolidated or made to leave in one way or another. The open door policy was a joke. One would have better luck meeting the Wizard of Oz than getting a face-to-face with our current superintendent. There's been no transparency between the citizens, the superintendent, nor most of the school board. Every major decision, it seems, has been made in secret behind closed doors with only a select few in attendance. The current superintendent does not represent the citizens nor listen to them. He only wishes to fulfill his own secret agendas. I know we can do better. There needs to be more reviews per year as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on, the consent agenda. Could I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Barkley? Aye. Bates? Kimbrell?
Aye.
Patterson?
Aye.
Rustable?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next item, discussion information, public hearing on the 24-25 budget.
Going to give the budget presentation tonight. We're in transition with CFO, and so I apologize for not being the polished budget presenter that we normally have, but nonetheless, I need to do so. Let's see, where's the PCF should be playing now? Say again?
This is the laptop, I think we turned the remote off for you to see.
Oh, got it. That works. Good. All right, perfect, thank you. This proposed budget for approval tonight, it was presented in the last board meeting. There might have been a couple of minor changes, but there were no major changes to it in the last month. Total program revenue, as we discussed earlier, we've broken it out by total funded pupils and split it out by district and go through the charter. The total program funding and broken out by property tax. Do that again. Broken out by property tax revenue, specific ownership tax, state share, and total program funding. Total program funding is about $22 million. And of course, about 25% of that goes to charter schools, about 75% of that goes to neighborhood schools. The general fund, total revenue, I'm going to read this because it's a little hard for me to read, so I'm sure it's a little hard for you to read as well. You have copies of it in your book in front of you as well. The total program funding is broken out by beginning fund balance, both showing total revenue by charters and by district. So you see both of those there and there. The total revenue with the flow through is about 1.35 million down. The total district revenue is 197,000 down this year. So our district expenditures have dropped by about $840,000, and our ending fund balance will be about 7.7 million this year. That reflects the $2 million fund capital expenditure authorization for this year for investment in security and facilities. And that pretty much totally accounts for the difference between the previous fund balance and the current fund balance, 9 million to 7 million. The total general fund breakout, so everyone can read it, we get about 2% of our revenue from federal. We get about 35% of our revenue from state. The local sales tax represents 11% of our revenue. And then all sales tax, all of our local revenue that does not include sales tax is about 52%. So moving from there to expenditures, that was the revenue side of things. On the expense side, our proposed budget is 9.2 million of instructional expense. That's down about 121,000 year over year, so some savings there from consolidation and school staffing changes. Special education, we expect to increase a little bit year over year. Co-curricular, small increase. Support services, decrease, and that's largely due to staffing reductions and school consolidations, not teacher reductions, but all the support staff you have in schools. Instruction staff, we have some savings there as well. General administration will go up slightly. That's statistically insignificant, but it's basically flat. It is up 20,000. School administration is down 300,000, and that's the significant savings from consolidating schools. Business services, 35,000, small increase, not terribly high. Significant savings in operations and maintenance, and this goes to supporting additional facilities as well, and the savings that we realize from those consolidations. Student transportation, we actually have an increase in the fund budget from student transportation. All of the expenses are covered. Central support, sorry, we have about $76,000 increase from 469 to 545. Other support, basically flat. Enterprise, basically flat. Building improvements, there's a slight reduction in building improvement costs because we're upgrading and working on maintenance of fewer buildings. And debt service is a fairly minor cost overall. Bottom line is, as I mentioned earlier, we have a reduction of $840,000 in total expense.
Mr. Wright, can you explain why the transportation costs have gone up?
Yes, although you've heard confused comments earlier, we can get into it a little bit more later, but all of the district transportation expense is paid for by the state. It's all covered. We actually don't have to come up with revenue for that. However, we do have fees associated with transportation, modest fees to families to make certain that they're actually going to use the transportation. And so that's the increase.
So you're anticipating an increase in the number of students utilizing the service, or?
No, because all of the expenses covered by the state funds, the student payment is in fact positive for us.
Okay, so then I guess I don't quite understand when you say that was the reason why it increased. What is the reason for increase? Sure.
Was there a negotiation for, to renew the contract? Did
Yes.
the contract expenses change?
Our transportation expenses increased by 4% roughly this year. Contractual increase that we go through each year. Sorry, I'm looking for a particular number. Let's see if I have it here. Would you like to?
Yeah, get them some water.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. The last slide. We'll come back to this, but just answer your question quickly.
Okay.
Contracted transportation services are roughly 290,000 estimated actually for last year.
Okay.
When we go back to transportation revenue, the state reimbursement is $263,000.
Okay.
The contracted transportation cost is $290,000, leaving $227,000. But the transportation fees cover that. So we are net positive on transportation costs. Hence, an increase to the fund balance slightly, not substantial.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. This water, get the drink. And put it down here, thank you. Sorry, I had to dig all the way into the presentation to find that. No. So if we look at the general fund expense broken out by categories, and I've had this before, but I'll point out that instructional, special education, and I don't know why that didn't come out on this slide, but that should be school administration. Those three add up to 64%. The curricular and support services for instruction are also instructional. So if you add those 7% to it, we're a little over 70% on total instructional expense. The rest is debt service, facilities, central support, business services, admin, operations, and maintenance. And as you've seen, there's been a significant savings in operations and maintenance. General fund expense by category, we spend roughly 76% of all the funds we take in out to salaries and benefits. We then purchase services with about 11%, supplies that are consumed in schools and in administration about 7%. Equipment and property is about 2%, and all other non-categorical about 5%.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So salaries have year-to-date change have decreased. Do you have anywhere broken down between administrative salaries and general salaries, however you might categorize that? Because go ahead, I'm sorry.
I can provide a breakout of salaries itself, of total compensation. I don't think it just means salaries. But if you go back to this one, that's a fairly direct breakout of instructional, special education, school administration, that's in-school administration, and then co-curricular, things that happen outside of normal school hours but require teachers, et cetera, and the support services that support those programs. That's a pretty good breakout, but it's not just compensation. So if you would like, I can produce a compensation only number.
I
do not have it.
Okay, you don't have enough.
So if we go to sales tax, as a breakout, to be clear, sales tax is basically breaking out in proportion to some of our cost categories. Educator salaries and benefits are about 70%. I mentioned earlier that's about what it adds up to, and our total costs as well. Lease payments are about growing, yes, 22%. I do want to point out that lease payments are actually taken out. Notice there's no charter, it's just district. They're taken off the top from the sales tax, and then what remains is divided by ratio by its headcount between neighborhood schools and charters. Facilities maintenance, safety and security, technology, and innovative programming are all small contributions or small consumers of the sales tax rates.
Do you, I know in the last report, we were talking about the technologies that were purchased using the sales tax, the computers. Do we know what we're utilizing or what technologies we'll be purchasing this year with that?
I did provide that in the city council discussion, but she doesn't have it here in this budget proposal. We're upgrading the ERP system, the system that tracks all AP and accounts payable and accounts receivable and expense management to significantly streamline. We got a little bit of a mess with our current system, and we need to streamline that and get that in much better, more efficient shape. So that's one of the investments, and that's called Skyward. And then we're glad to see this year we invested in Chromebooks for students in the upcoming year. I don't remember the innovation category. I apologize, but I'll find it for you. It's actually posted on our website.
Okay.
But, these are the funds, the state-required fund categories for budget management for school districts. In risk management, to explain risk management, basically insurance claims, any fixes that we have to do as a result of realized risk that we don't rely on insurance for. We allocate those. We recover a good bit of that revenue from insurance claims, but we don't recover all of it. Then we have our expenditures, purchase services, the premiums we pay, the supplies we consume, security software that we use to deal with incidents. You'll notice that was historic, not current. No change, I'm sorry, no current change. We have a fixed budget for that and we'll be well within it. And then equipment, and we do occasionally make equipment investments for card badge readers and things like that that may be also associated with risk management, where security is a risk that we manage. So that's the risk management fund. It balances out as it should, because the real risk you realize you have to address, you recover all you can from claims, and then you take in whatever you've allocated to the risk management fund for each year. So as we include it.
Before we move on from that one, so just looking at the insurance claims, I noticed that we've come back down closer to what our actual was for last year for this year's estimate. But that 156,000 that was budgeted when we revised the budget last year, we never really got clarification on why we felt we needed to increase that budget there, and it looks like we didn't wind up using it. Is there any more explanation as to what that was for?
No, I believe the explanation that Amy Ryan, our previous CFO, gave you is the correct explanation, which is she used a prior number and then went back 3 or 4 years and realized our run rate had been substantially lower, so we budgeted lower. The next category is food service.
I do have a
Yes.
question.
Sure.
On the risk management. Is any part of this, like purchase services or any of the things down here, is any portion of this legal fees that could be broken out? Or I'm just trying to think, answer the question about legal fee costs. Is that line item anywhere or part of this?
I do not know the answer to that. I'm not our CFO. However, I would expect that to be in purchase services if there are legal costs. And if you'd like me to get you the purchase services breakdown. A little
Well, that's what I just wondered, because oftentimes it's put under, in different organizations, purchased services for legal fees, and I was curious if this also was part of that.
I don't have the breakdown of purchase services, but I'll get it. Food service. Notice that our beginning fund balance was 310. Our proposed budget is 224, so we'll be well within previous fund balances. This is another one where we recapture all of the expense. All of our meals from Proposition FF, free food for all, means that all students' meals are now reimbursed by the state. But reimbursed matters. That means we have to have the money up front, which is why we have a fund balance. We then pay for those food services, and then we get reimbursed from the state for that. There is a small category of non-reimbursed amount. And that is because there are optional food services, and they're not part of the meal. I want an extra milk, I want an apple, I wanted this or that students actually pay for directly.
I do have another question, because I was asked just last week about this. As part of the free food service or refunded by the state, are teachers able to take advantage of that? Or is that simply students? Do you know, is there an answer to that?
No, I'm going to say I do not know the answer to that. I believe the proposition was for students' meals. But I've been asked that, so I guess I would have to go check.
Just wondering, it'd be nice if the
Pretty sure the
teachers were able to
proposition
take
is
advantage of that too.
But if you'd like, Kelly, we'll double check.
Superintendent, do we have an estimated time when we receive the funds back from the state?
I confess, I don't know the fund timing for reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's timely. We've never been in a tight position.
Yeah.
And then designated proposed grants, you have local grants, you have state grants and federal grants. There's a grant fund that tracks those as well. The only notable on this is total federal grants from 1 million down to $500,000. ESSER is over. That is the end of ESSER 3 funds, the COVID-19 funds. This year, they will no longer exist.
What programs was that covering, and do we have a plan to make sure we're still covering that, or does that mean those programs will go away?
Some of those programs are support programs that do go away. However, also there was staff involved in some of that, and we're continuing the staff, so we shifted those expenses. That's one of the reasons why our budget, we had to have some savings to balance the reduction. The next fund is pupil activity, special revenue. And just to be clear, these are, you can see by school, students pay various fees, various activity fees, materials fees, those sorts of things. And those all, we take in revenue And then, of course, we have to pay for all of those things that we do. We maintain a positive balance. All of our schools have a positive balance from their fund that allows them to do these activities, extracurricular activities. We've run pretty strongly here, and we continue to do that to make certain that our schools can be robust and have a significant opportunity to serve students in unique and interesting ways ad hoc.
And then, just for manner of clarification, when it says middle school on here, that means the middle school students, not the building, correct?
We have a middle school and we have a high school. Next year, we will have a middle school and we will have a high school. We have separate school codes. They're recognized by us and the CDE as separate schools. They just happen to be in the same building.
Okay, so that references the coding, not the building.
Right, that references the school, not the building they're in.
Okay, thank you.
The last one is transportation, and I already gave you the explanation, and two, that's one on transportation, and that is that our transportation costs are fully covered by state reimbursement and modest transportation.
1 million is general fund though.
This is, to be clear, this is student transportation to and from school. This is not activities and extracurricular transportation, which is covered by school fees or other activities. And that's by definition of the state. The transportation fund is for transportation to and from school.
Transportation for, say it again.
To and from school.
Not including the extracurriculars.
If you get on a bus to go to the zoo, that is not in transportation.
Okay.
Or athletic, out-of-town athletic events, various things.
Which happens a lot.
So capital projects is the last category. If you recall, last year, the board allocated $2 million special from the reserves for investment in security and facilities.
Right.
We currently will have a carryover this year of about $850,000 from that fund into next year. We will continue to spend those funds against those objectives. But, you know, it takes time to do some of these things. We can't always do it all at once. We are not asking for additional reserves or additional allocations of capital from reserves to do that. We're going to continue with the funds that are out.
So these are residual funds, but for the same projects that have not been able to be accomplished.
That's exactly right. This fund, the capital project fund, has a residual of 854 going into next year, and that's what we will use. And that is the budget presentation. Just to go over the resolutions briefly, the appropriation resolution states the actual fund balance of all funds. So that's all monies, not just revenue, but all monies that the school district holds. And that's by fund. That has to be approved each year. It has to be approved tonight. The specific budget resolution is the actual resolution that says, here's a fund and we're going to pull some money out of it net for the year. You'll notice that in the general fund, that is zero. We are positive this year. We have we're in the black. We are not pulling anything from reserves. So the general fund has no appropriation from it this year. Excuse me. The risk management fund, there's a small investment coming from that. It'll be covered, but first we'll have to go from the fund. Food service always has a front end. We'll pull the expenses and get reimbursed later. So there's a 29,000, roughly 30,000 drop from the food service fund, but that will end up black. And then the only other one is the capital project fund, which we anticipate spending all of that carryover this year. So there will be a drop at $854,000.
So I was going to ask about that. So these projects, will we get reports on them? Are they being bid out? Like, how are we spending this money?
I believe over the last 2 or 3 meetings, Director Salt has provided information on some of these projects. We'll continue to do that as they come up. They don't all happen at once, but we'll report on the projects as they're worked on.
But just to make sure that when we do these projects, we do send them out for bid. Is that correct? Like construction or property, any kind of, go ahead.
Yes, that is correct. It's that one of the question, good point. Make sure that we answer that thoroughly. We bid capital projects, not services, okay, by policy. There is one caveat on capital expenditures, and that is the CDD maintains a list of approved providers that are recognized as fair price providers, and many districts, including ours, do not require a bid if you use someone from that CD's approved provider list. So once in a while that comes up.
Do we typically, what has happened since you've been here, do we typically pull someone from that category, or do we still put it up for bid to do our improvement projects? Do you know?
Quite honestly, I would
Or
answer
Aaron
there.
would.
Last year, I don't believe we pulled any from that list. I believe we bid anything that was over the threshold. I don't remember what it is. But it's $10,000 or $20,000.
I think it's 25,000 is that threshold.
There is a threshold. We go after a bid for those. Last year, I know for a fact we didn't use any from that list for anything over 25,000.
I just wanted to
This year,
confirm,
I can't speak to whether or not we would, but we make it.
I know that has been a concern, and I just wanted to make sure that was addressed, that we do put things out for bid, and
We do for items that are over the threshold.
Okay.
And to be clear, the district does not always have a history of doing that. We've had some favored nation relationships with providers, but we're implementing the discipline of bidding. Again, and with the exceptions on the CDE list, but other than that, we go. It's a threshold.
And then would it be possible to get a list of the capital projects that we're planning on doing? I don't feel like I have heard a fair amount of what
Absolutely.
we're actually spending that on.
Absolutely, we get a breakout of plans for that.
And that's probably true, because a lot of these were, they were allocated prior to when the election, when you're on the board.
So you're talking about the remaining capital projects.
Right, so there's a
And we're down
$854,000 that
Right.
we're voting on tonight to spend, but I don't know what we're planning on spending that on, and that feels irresponsible to vote on.
The money was appropriated last year and the priorities were outlined. There was security and some facilities upgrades, but I can get you the list.
Yeah, because we're
This is
voting
not
on
new
it
money,
again.
this is
Some of the
continuing
same-
for that money.
There's nothing new on this, correct?
There's nothing new on this.
Okay, well then it is approved.
Some of the security and projects were in, they're in executive session, they cannot be discussed here, because they were security risks, so, but he would be able to get that to you.
But there are a number of items, we'll show.
can I ask this? People were talking on top of each other, so I couldn't hear. I didn't understand what was. The capital improvements that we're voting on are already have been approved? Is that what I heard you say?
You approved them last year.
Okay.
It's $2 million, there's $864,000 left. We're carrying it forward, but we'll still spend the rest of that $2 million on security and facilities objectives as agreed.
Okay, and I believe it was asked, what specifically is that?
What remains, that's right, and we'll get a list.
Okay, so we're going to have a list, but we're going to vote on it tonight.
Yeah, the money's already been allocated. If you could vote no on the appropriation and say, no, hold the $864,000 in an account. But you originally approved that money to be spent on security and facilities, and we'd like to continue to do that.
There have been no changes in those capital expenditures, so it's just carryover. And he is going to get us the superintendent is going to get us a list of those, but we can vote on it because they've already been approved and there are no changes to what was approved. Do you understand
Do
that?
you remember some of the things that there were that we were going to have?
Gosh,
I know
it was
that
quite a
the
list.
boiler, there were some big
Boiler
heating units up at
replacement,
Summit.
HVAC.
Air handling
controls,
units.
Badging units, some security investments that we have not been highly specific on in, among our school facilities.
Key.
Was one of them that portion of the high school that is out, does not have air conditioning in the back area back there or something? Is that?
Yes.
Anyway, that's why they had the doors propped open. But anyway,
It's
evidently not.
our main.
But those are the types of items.
Okay.
I'll get you more of those.
Thank you, Mr. Witt.
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
I actually have a couple questions about the budget and how the budget will look going forward. We did spend a lot of money on legal fees this past year, and I don't know how that compares to other school districts our size. You're much more familiar with schools. Can you address that in any way? Or, I know that we've had a number of lawsuits, we've had a lot of Cora requests. I'm curious why the budget doesn't reflect legal fees other than purchase services. And
At this level of detail, rarely are legal fees called out in an annual budget. I'm not sure that I've seen that in very many school district budgets, and
Okay.
I've seen a lot of these presentations. However, the detail is available. The question is, why do we have legal fees, or how do they compare to others? We have an inordinate amount of Cora process, which drives up our expenses incredibly high for legal review of every response to make certain that student names aren't given out, that confidential information, that privileged information is given out, et cetera. It requires a legal review every time. We have lawsuits. Some of them I find interestingly motivated that keep us fairly busy on that front as well.
at one point, we had someone in-house hired, ended up being full-time reviewing Cora requests. Tell me, how's that handled now? I mean, I'm asking for me and for the public to know as well.
Nothing has changed.
Say it again. I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Nothing has changed other than the name.
Okay, so someone in-house that's not at Farmer Miller Law Firm or anything like that.
The process hasn't changed.
Okay.
The process has someone inside that pulls the information, and then it does get a legal review before it's released.
Okay, and each one of those legal reviews, so we're paying for an employee to do that here in the school, and we're also paying for the attorney to review it before it's released?
That is correct.
Do you have any idea of what the cost per request is? Just,
No.
you don't have, okay.
I would be just guessing.
There were upwards of 200 core requests last year.
200.
And some can be dealt with in-house, but many of them do require legal opinion. So there's a pretty substantial legal fee involved with these core requests.
Okay.
All right?
Good motivation to be transparent then.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. The one other question that I have is about the sales tax, the $2,582,000, so about $1 million. If I understand, all that money goes into the general fund.
It's 3.2 million.
3.2.
Yes.
I thought it was, but then my eyes failed me. So anyway, so we have that money, the sales tax money, goes into the general fund. Is that broken out somewhere that we can say, here is the list of where we've spent that money, so that the taxpayers know, and then the city council who oversees that knows where all those dollars are spent for that specific amount of sales tax?
We do not do separate accounting in the general fund for every revenue source that comes into the general fund.
Right. I know it all goes into the general fund, but do we have a list that we can set? We don't. Would that be difficult to have that kind of a list that we say?
It would be expensive, but it could be done.
I don't know. I think that as big of a conversation it is with the community today, it hasn't ever been that way in the past since we had the sales tax.
No, in fact, the presentation that we gave this year is the same presentation format and content that was given in years past.
Okay. Would it be reasonable to have a list of those dollars? I know they're not specific, those dollars, but that total amount of money spent on education, that amount was spent in these approved categories.
I'm looking for that pie chart. It does break it down. Let's see here.
I know that you did in general for the state council, and you and Mr. Bates were there, and I was just listening to what the questions were, and some of them weren't really to do with the budget, but that was the general question that I hear from people who are concerned about it. Where does this, do we have a list of where those dollars go out of the general fund for that amount?
Mr. Rusterholz, we followed the protocols of previous reports to the city, and other entities have turned in pie charts, as did we. We've never been scrutinized on that in the past until this year.
Right.
But we didn't change anything in our reporting process to the city. There was just additional scrutiny this year. And it was mentioned at the last city council meeting that other entities that have got to provide breakdowns turn in the same thing we did, and I don't think they were overly scrutinized.
Are there any more budget questions?
So on like the front page, we have the funded pupil count. So in years past, and even just the last time we approved a budget, we had the 5-year average, and then there was a separate category, the FPC, which is, what they count as a full-time student, right? The equivalent, full-time student equivalent. I don't see that broken down this time.
I don't know that this is different than previous years, but I won't comment on it because I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
No, this gives the 5-year average that the CDE uses for funding. That is the funded pupil count. That is the count used.
It's just in years past, there was a separate line where we had the 5-year average and then the actual count. So I was just curious why it was missing. And then other questions I had received was just about the state equalization. If you could explain how that kind of works out and how we figured out what part goes to the community schools, as you called it, and what goes to the charter school.
Funding from the state is distributed proportionately by head count. Our money follows the students. Whichever student goes to, we distribute it by that formula. Other than earmarked funds that are required to be allocated in a particular way. For instance, the COP payment from the sales tax is taken off first.
Right. So with the state equalization, though, it just looks like we have it budgeted that the charter school is getting more than half of the state equalization funds that are coming in. So I was just curious what the formula was for that one. Because I think they represent, what, 24% of the student population.
So give me a line.
So it's on, not in the presentation that you provided, but in like the full
That's why.
budget. So on the general fund, it was page 2
Okay.
on there. It had it broken down a little bit more. So that we were passing through the state charter school allocation was getting more than that. I was just curious about that.
I have no comment, but if you'd like a breakout of it, how that is allocated. It is, all of the funds are allocated by head count unless they're earmarked. Now, if that particular category had some requirements or constraints around it, I'll try that out.
Okay, yeah, that would be good to know that.
Thank you, Mr. Witt.
Thank you. I know there were some detailed questions that you're not the.
I apologize for not being the in-depth expert, but we will have that position filled again very soon.
You were a good fill. Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the 24-25 budget appropriation resolution as presented?
This first, we added this as.
Oh, that is the first item. My apologies. My apologies. Okay, the additional action item that we added is first. The ESEA General Assurances form that we fill out every year. Do you want to speak to it, Mr. Witt?
Yeah. It's fairly simple to get title funds from the federal government to put in the application, the consolidated application. One of the requirements this year is the passing of the general assurances, the ESEA general assurances. We can't change them. We don't edit them. We simply have to say, yep, we follow the federal guidelines if we're going to get federal funds. This year, they required a board action to approve the assurances so that we can submit the application for the title funds. These are for at-risk students, et cetera. And it's a fairly perfunctory thing. We have to do it. You simply have to do it to receive title funds. And I apologize that it's the last minute. It has not necessarily historically been this way. They believed that it would only require a signature of the board president, and it turns out this year it says it requires a board action, so we had to add it.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barclay.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson. Aye. Westerholt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. You have my assurance that next year, if it requires a board action again, we will know sooner.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your reminder, Ms. Kimball. Now, do I have a motion to approve the 24-25 budget appropriation resolution as presented? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
I would just like some discussion about this, just for a minute.
We just had a discussion, Mr. Westerholt.
Well, we have a first and a second, right? And now it's time for discussion?
After we have a motion, some
Yes.
question
So
can
we
be
have a
asked.
first and a second, so now it's time for
No, oh,
Am I
okay,
correct or
I'm
am I
sorry.
wrong?
I'm sorry,
Correct.
my fault.
Okay. And I did not mean to be disrespectful at all. No, and I said that.
That was my
Okay.
mistake.
I would like to see, because it's so important right now, that we provide or have a breakdown of the sales tax money. If that can be somehow added to, or an addendum, or some kind of a footnote to, I understand that other organizations, other groups that are accountable aren't doing it this detailed. But how costly would it be to provide a detailed list like that?
I don't know, but I'll find it.
Mr. Westerholz, if you read the conditions of the intergovernmental agreement, they are very vague.
They
It talks about things to spend them on, it says such as. And I believe we met that criteria. And if we were to have to do some additional breakouts and accounting, that's just some more expense to the district. That is part of the reasons we need these monies. And it's been acceptable since 2016. I just really question the additional scrutiny at this point, because we are meeting the terms of the intergovernmental agreement. That should be adequate. That should be end of story.
Yes, I do understand, and it is pretty open-ended.
Well,
It has things that are detailed, but
we are a separate entity than the city council, and we are meeting the conditions of the IGA, and they need to meet those as well. And they are asking for things that are not in that IGA.
I understand that.
Okay.
My question is, though, can we just go a little bit extra I don't know, can we do just a little bit more to show further transparency? Because there's obviously council members.
Maybe
Say it again?
Extend the olive branch.
That's a good way to say it. But how can we just a token of good faith, or because there's a number of council members that are very angry about it. What can we do to come alongside and say, let's do it a little bit more, or what will satisfy? It's all that I'm saying.
I understand your olive branch comment. Back at the very beginning of this, and it was shortly after I took over as president, it was the city council's responsibility to rekindle this, and it wasn't done. So we've been the underdog in this process all along. And when we
Point
went,
of order. There is people talking back here all evening.
folks, this is a board meeting. Your time to speak is done. Thank you. So we have gone the extra steps here. And as I said in the city council meeting a few weeks ago here, there are alternative motives for the way this is being handled at this point. And I personally feel that we just agreed to this IGA on March 26th, I believe. And it was signed by both parties. We did agree. Why are we changing the rules in the middle of the game? My question.
That's a good question.
Thank you. Anything else? Roll call?
No, I'd like to add, we have the presentation here. 70% goes to educator salaries and benefits. That's pretty clear. 22% goes to the COP lease payments. That's pretty clear. That's transparency. 2.5% go to facilities and maintenance. 2% goes to safety and security. 2.2% go to technology, and 22% go to innovative programming and other. That's very specific.
And it is
So-
broken down. Their one question as part of that IGA was that we break out the portion that the charter school gets, and we did do that in that report. It is broken down. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Barkley? Bates?
Yes.
Kimbrell? Yes. Patterson?
Yes.
Rusterholz?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. Item B, specific budget resolution number 1, finance. Have I got a motion to approve the specific budget resolution number 1 as presented?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barkley?
No.
Bates?
Yes.
Kimbrell?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Rusterholz?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, the next item is regular Board of Education meeting schedule for 24-25. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at that? It's pretty simple. I have to dig here to find it. Let me see.
Blue tab.
It is pretty traditional. We will not be having a meeting in July. That is historic. And so our first regular board meeting will be August 14th, and then carry on through this time next year, which would be June 11th.
I just have one question on it.
Yes.
Did we, I know when we had our work session, we discussed making sure our board meetings don't fall the week after a long break or anything to make sure that all the materials get out appropriately. Did we double check this with the calendar to make sure that wasn't the case this year?
I don't know if that was done.
I was not aware of that, so the answer to your
And
question is.
state that again, Ms. Barkley?
When we had our board retreat, and
Right.
we had run into a couple of issues where some of the board packets were a little delayed getting out because the meeting happened to fall right after a break. And so we had discussed that going forward, we'd make sure that our meetings didn't kind of follow that cadence. We would just shift a meeting if we needed to make sure that didn't happen.
I mean, I know of the one situation that we had a discussion about, which was around, was it spring break?
Christmas break and spring break.
Yeah.
Okay.
That may be a problem, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you pass the schedule tonight, we'll take an agenda item for the August meeting
Okay.
to bring any collisions.
Clarify that.
Okay, that works. I was just curious if we had looked at that yet.
So if there's in clarification, if there are any conflicts, we'll make it an agenda item in the August meeting.
There are conflicts.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
Well, if there are conflicts, do we want, no
Well,
discussion?
yeah, we'll approve it tonight, but if there have to be any changes, we'll make it an agenda item at the August meeting.
Can we wait to do it, or does it have to go out now?
I would suggest, because you have the public wanting to know when the next meeting is, that you go ahead and approve it and then modify it if we need to.
Because the new schedule starts in August.
We know that there won't be a conflict in August. Do I have a motion to approve the calendar?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
May I ask a question quickly now that we have it? What is the first conflict that you saw?
January.
January. Okay, so we do have time to adjust
It's
it.
the winter break, wasn't it? I wondered if that would be it.
And spring break will not be an issue next year because it's always the second Wednesday of the month, and it was just the timing of the calendar. So there is the one.
And we'll have plenty of time to address it? Yes. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, good question.
Okay, roll call?
Barkley.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Westerholt.
Aye. Okay, the next item, adding the U.S. citizenship test to graduation requirements beginning with May of 2025, graduating class. Ms. Slocum?
Good evening. I know that you all have this in your packet, but I want to make sure that I am giving everyone some background information so that you are aware, so everyone here is transparent for everyone of this information. So yes, we are proposing to add a U.S. citizenship test to the graduation requirements beginning with May of 2025. So some background with this. In alignment with the Woodland Park School District purpose statement, which is actually right on the wall behind everyone. Woodland Park School District exists to establish a common foundation of knowledge that cultivates educated citizens who appreciate and contribute to the great American Republic as provided in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. And the students will be equipped to be successful members of a uniquely American society. The district seeks to add an additional graduation requirement wherein the student must be able to pass the U.S. citizenship test. So in order to prepare for this consideration, we did a pilot test in our wonderful Mr. Bill Brown's class. And we were very pleased with the results. We had 96% of our students pass it with no instruction and extra preparation. So that's 22 out of 23 students passed that, which is wonderful. We would not be adding an extra class. We would just be adding a unit to classes that are already established. And students would be taking this test during their junior and senior years, which gives them ample time to prepare and pass this test. And just to be quite honest with you, this is a pretty common graduation requirement across the country. Several states require this as an entire state. Even myself growing up in Illinois, I had to pass a pretty large constitution test, 40 to 50 questions, I believe, to move from 8th grade to 9th grade, and also my junior year of high school. And so this test is actually the U.S. citizenship test. They must answer 6 out of 10 questions correctly. So it's truly to prepare our students to be successful citizens.
And it sounds like we already are, so thank you.
I believe we are, yes.
So that was good news, the pilot test.
And I do believe we have amazing teachers also teaching this, so that's a great job.
So you're adding this to existing classes, like a unit within a class?
Correct.
Do you think this is going to be a burden on the teachers or on the students in any way? Could you address that?
Maybe not, because I believe a lot of this information is already covered in classes. We're just ensuring that our students take that extra step to pass this test. And again, 6 out of 10 questions.
So I have a question kind of along the same line. So if we had such a high success, 96% pass rate already, and the material that's covered on this test is presumably already covered in the units that we have, and therefore covered in like the end of unit tests and the finals, do we need another arbitrary standardized test in our list of tests that these students have to take, or does the curriculum we have already cover it?
Well, I do believe that it's important because it's our purpose statement and it's in alignment with that this guarantees that we are specifically ensuring that curriculum is being taught with fidelity.
So we don't think that our current curriculum
I do
is?
think that, but I do think that it's okay to have our students take a test that shows that information.
2 things can be right at the same time, so.
I like how it emphasizes that the importance of being a citizen of this great nation is, that it is very important. It is a honored privilege to have been born here or to have immigrated here. So I do like it.
I do like that it is put out on its own to carry its own weight. So I do like that. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Barkley,
No.
Bates,
Yes.
Kimbrell,
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Westerholz.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, folks. Board of Education reports. Anyone? I have one. We recently attended the high school graduation. If you had an umbrella, you probably flew off like Mary Poppins. But it went very well. And some of the staff did some speeches. Some students did some wonderful speeches. Mr. Brown back here and another educator did one, and it was just very, I think it was very warm for the graduating students. And it was a good presentation, well done. And we congratulated all of those seniors, and I think they had a fun day out there. And the wind was a challenge, but it didn't ruin the moment, so it was good. Anything else?
I'd like to add to the graduation was awesome, but I'd like to thank all the staff. There was a lot that went into this presentation, and I wanted the teachers all worked very hard, and the administration staff, and to bring those kids across the stage. And we also learned that our principal likes Pop-Tarts.
That's very good observation. Every graduating student handed her a Pop-Tart. But she makes sure that none of her kids are hungry. So she's always got a Pop-Tart. If someone was hungry, they could go to get a Pop-Tart. So it was the principal, I'm sorry. So that was interesting. Thank you, Sid.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but before we go into executive session, I just wanted to see if we were, because it doesn't specify it here, going to meet in executive session as a board by ourselves first to go over the evaluation, since we have not met as a board to go over this evaluation together before Mr. Witt comes in and we present him with it.
No, we will do it as a group.
That's kind of unusual.
That's the way we did it with the prior superintendent.
Did you meet prior though to have a work
And
session?
actually,
No, did not.
thank you, but we're on board reports. We will be discussing this first thing when we go into executive session.
Right, but if he's in there, then that was beyond where I wanted
Okay.
to discuss it before he walked in.
Thank you. Okay, there being nothing at this time, I need a motion for us to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402-4F for the purpose of superintendent evaluation in relation to component EE2 leadership competencies. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barkley. Aye. Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Westerholz.
Aye. This time we will excuse ourselves for an executive session.
Executive session, so.
That is correct. reconvening the meeting at looks like 8:29. I would state that no actions or votes were taken tonight. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Roll call. Ms. Barkley?
Barkley.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Resterholz. Aye.
Motion carries.
Who seconded?
Cassie.
I did. Now we have to give this to Kelly.
And the time is?
We didn't have the
8:29.
about that